and welcome to the ImagineCrafts YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted here on YouTube, and today I am going to show you a technique that you may already be familiar with, but if you aren't, hopefully this gives you some new ideas for how you can use your ink pads. So here I'm just swatching on some Versacolor pigment ink. The color I'm using is called Cardinal. It's this lovely, lovely red. And this by itself is a great way to use your ink pad. So instead of buying lots of different solid color cardstocks, you can just use your ink pads and make your own. And this way you have perfectly coordinated paper to go along with your stamping or other inky techniques. So that on its own, I think, is wonderful. However, because this is a pigment ink, you can actually put some embossing powder right over top before the pigment ink has a chance to dry. And there are actually two embossing powders that I love to use with this technique. This one here is called Sparkle. It's really, really lovely. You can already see a little bit of the glisten and shine. And I'm okay with the fact that I didn't ink all the way to the edges because I'm actually going to use this to die cut from. But certainly you could, if you wanted, try to ink up a complete panel. I'm going to let my heat gun get nice and hot. That way it starts to melt that powder right away. And you can see that powder melt and all of that amazing shine. So once you've melted that powder, it does have a sort of an enamel finish. It's glossy. And here's a side-by-side actually of the two panels and the two different powders that I use. So here on the right is Sparkle, and this one here is Iridescent. Now keep in mind, Iridescent there's two versions of Iridescent. One that is opaque and one that just says Iridescent. You want the version that just says Iridescent because that one has sort of a clear embossing powder mixed in with the bits that give it that sort of holographic shine, whereas the opaque one, as the name would suggest, actually has some white embossing powder mixed in there. And so it too will give you that holographic shine where you see the different colors kind of sparkle as you tilt the panel. But because it's got some opaque whiteness to it, it's just going to cover your inky panel. So you want the two that I find fantastic for this technique are Iridescent and Sparkle. So give those two a try because there is a difference between the two panels. And all I'm doing here is just using my scoreboard to kind of do some faux embossing. So if you don't have an embossing folder, this is one way that you can emboss a panel. I just chose to do some diagonal lines here, and my scoreboard comes with a tool that lets me make envelopes, but essentially just score a diagonal line. But as I was saying, so with the embossed powders, the Sparkle one has a little bit more some silver glitter, it sort of looks like mixed in there. So that one is a little bit more kind of sparkly and bold. Iridescent is a little bit more subtle, but that iridescent shine definitely comes through. So you get two different finishes and it's worth playing with them. So here again are the two panels. The one on the right is Sparkle. The one on the left is Iridescent. And I think I'm going to go with the Iridescent. And it die cuts beautifully. So you can die cut through this and it looks gorgeous. And you don't need to, with these powders, with your pigment ink pads, you don't need to go out and buy specialty cardstock or anything like that. You can essentially just make your own. And it's basically, it's almost like making a custom glitter paper. Really, really gorgeous. And so to complete my card, I've got my white embossed panel. And I'm going to keep this card nice and clean and simple because I want that heart die cut to just kind of shine and speak for itself. So, so that's why I'm keeping everything kind of white in the background. So I don't want too many other colors going on there. But by doing the faux embossing, where I've just scored multiple diagonal lines, it just helps it to have a little bit of texture so that there's interest back there, but it's not busy. So it's not completely plain white, but it's also not introducing any additional colors. So just a little bit of texture. I'm using some on point glue from ImagineCrafts as well to glue this panel on. And I'll give that a moment to dry after I burnish it really well so that it helps to kind of spread all of that glue out, and it just makes sure that your two pieces have really good, strong contact with one another. So now we'll start to add our sentiment. So I just happen to have this banner die and a deboss plate that will deboss the sentiment "sending hugs" right in the center of my banner. And one thing, as you are applying glue to the embossed cardstock, is you may need to put an acrylic block on top and give it a little bit of time to dry, just like you would any other glitter paper, because that enamel finish, it doesn't absorb your liquid adhesive in the same way regular cardstock would. So you need to give it a little bit of time to dry, and adding some weight on top will keep nice firm contact between the layers. I'm also gonna use a little bit of, this is my low profile foam adhesive. So it's only 1 millimeter thick. It's not going to add too much dimension to this card, but it does give it a little bit of depth, which I like. So usually this 1 millimeter foam is what I use for most things that aren't shakers. And that way, if I wanted to have 2 layers of foam in some areas, it doesn't get overly thick, and you don't run the risk of having to actually pay a little bit extra in postage, because it still keeps your card relatively thin. So I'm going to back the heart with some of that same low profile foam, just to bring everything up to the same level. And then I always like to add a little bit of liquid adhesive even when I'm using foam, because generally a liquid adhesive is going to be stronger than double-sided dry adhesive. So I like to just dot on a little bit of liquid adhesive just to play it safe. And I'll attach this to the front of my card, and that's going to wrap up my card. So I love how easy and simple this is, and how all of that glitter and the iridescent shine comes through on the heart, because I think that's kind of the star of this card, and so easy to make as well. I hope that you enjoy this video, and I hope you'll give this technique a try. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.